So, welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining me today for Women Who Lead. And this week, we're featuring the Rainmakers, and they are the dynamic women in the relocation industry that pursue strategic opportunities for the companies they represent, along with generating new business and creating relationships that help deliver first-class services to their clients. Hello, my name is Teresa Palacios Smith, and I am Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for Home Services of America and HSF affiliates. And I'm so glad that you are able to join me for a cafecito, right? We're all having our little cafecito to learn from each of these leaders who bring a unique talent and perspective to their role, which focuses largely on affinity, right, Carrie and Marian and Sue, and also on relationships and programs that are designed to create solutions and also offer benefits to their clients. And this role that you have is very dear to my heart because, believe it or not, when Kathy Connolly, hey Kathy, I hope you're watching, watched the show, hired me for the first time, it was to create their affinity program. That was more than 20 years ago. I'm dating myself. So I love the role because Dan's always been ahead of his time, Dan Boersman, and he actually thought about doing this that many years ago. I found this quote and I thought it was perfect for today. Don't find customers for your products, find products for your customers. And I thought that was just perfect because if you do that, you're going to be successful. So grab your cafecito or chai or tea, right? And join us as our special guests, the Rainmakers, whose roles range from educators to solutionists and strategists with one common goal in mind, and that's creating those thoughtful and meaningful relationships and delivering world-class service. So here are my Rainmakers. Let's introduce Sue Giardino. Sue is the manager of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services and Real Living Real Estate's referral channel development. She has over 25 years of experience. I'm with you there, Sue, in both relocation. We started when we were babies, right?
And relocation. I was counting the years. It's more than that now.
I know. It's like we started when we were little girls. Yes. Our role is to drive opportunity, advocacy, and performance on behalf of the franchise networks we represent. And she's also a member of the Worldwide Employee Relocation Council. All of these women are. And she holds the Corporate Mobility Specialist designation as well as is G certified for BGRS. Both of these designations are super hard to get. So congratulations on that, Sue. And by the way, we are so lucky to have Sue and Mary Kelly and our team that advocate our network for our network brokers. No other network does that. So I'm very, very proud to be. And I was so impressed when I first met her several years ago and the role that she had. And she's absolutely phenomenal. So I can't wait for you to hear from her. Marian Paget. So Marian is Vice President of Client Services for Home Services Relocation. Welcome, Marian. And she manages also, right, the affinity relationship for the Berkshire Hathaway family of companies, which is impressive in its own design, right? She has over 2 decades of experience in relocation and real estate as well. And she's also a CRP and Global Mobility Specialist Talent designated from Worldwide ERC. She's a member of SHRM, which again, I love SHRM, right? I'm involved with SHRM as well. And also past president of the Metro Atlanta Relocation Council in Atlanta, Georgia, and also currently serves on the board. And that's another one that's dear to my heart because I was a member of MARC for many years. And then Carrie Sylvester. Welcome, Carrie. Carrie is Chief Operating Officer of Home Story Real Estate Services. Carrie has over 15 years of experience delivering technology solutions to real estate agents and brokers around the globe. I'm so impressed with that, Carrie. The fact that you do technology, amazing, because STEM is one of those areas where women are not as involved as we'd like them. Her passion is to bring a streamlined experience to the home buyer, the real estate agent, and the loan officer through closing, right, which is dynamic. So again, welcome all of you. I'm so excited to have you on the show. You guys are special because I come from your world. So let's get started. So I always ask this number one question. I'm gonna start with you, Carrie, and then Marion, and then Sue. Tell me a little bit about how you got started in the real estate arena or in the technology sector to begin with. So Carrie, let's start with you with that question.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be on here. Just a quick, 2 second of how I got into this. So it kind of started with how I got into tech and then transitioned into real estate. And I'll be honest, I got into tech by accident. I was working a company call center on the phones, and it was awful. It was an awful job. And they were starting up the IT department. And I went back there, and luckily I had a father that helped push me and build up that confidence that when I called him, I was like, I think I'm going to go talk to them. He said, of course you should. Go do it. And I said, I studied math. So I think I'm real logical. I know nothing about computers, but I'd like to learn. And you've got a new department. And he was given zero budget. So he got me. He didn't get a budget for experience. And so was able, and he was a great mentor and taught me a lot to get me started into that career. Worked in a couple different verticals and then ended up over in the real estate business. And found that this is the vertical that I love. So it could take my passion for what technology could do, and then figuring out what we could do in this vertical to make such a better experience, and how we could really combine those two worlds. So I jumped in over at a real estate company that was just growing and starting, and on a tech side, and then transitioned into, as we grew the company, transitioned into the business side, to help lead strategy and business of how we take the real estate business into the new world with all the changes. I mean, we've seen a lot throughout the years. So kind of took a chance to get into IT and then found the right vertical for myself that could help translate and jump from tech to business.
Well, and the operations piece, which is what Sue also does, is such a difficult endeavor. My daughter's doing the operations side, and I can never do that. I'm more of a people, I'm always out in front. That's where me and Marion, right? We both thrive in that area. So Sue, tell me a little bit, and thanks, Carrie. That's great. Sue, tell a little bit. Marion, let's talk about you first. Tell me a little bit about how you got into the real estate industry, because you came from the broker side too, and then transitioned over into relocation.
Right. So I began my career in radio sales. So I was selling commercials for radio stations. And one of my managers wound up starting her own marketing firm for real estate. And so she hired me to come and sell real estate for a developer. And then I went from that to general brokerage. And at the time it was Prudential Carolinas Realty. And I was a real estate agent for several years. Then my broker in charge said, hey, I've got to hire an assistant manager. Would you like to be, on the management side? And so I took that opportunity. And then I was promoted to broker in charge of my own offices. And so I did that for about 7 years on the management side, a broker in charge. And then moved to the relocation department for the brokerage. Did that for 5 years and managed the department across North Carolina. And then 5.5 years ago, moved to Home Services Relocation and Business Development. And 2 months ago, moved into client services and for Home Services Relocation for the North Carolina Service Center.
And that's great. Right in your backyard, the market. And I have to give you a shout out because I know you hired Champ Claris, our Champ, right? I got to have my Champ guy, right?
And
that's right. And Champ is one of our sales guys who does a phenomenal job for us on our side with our brand. So again, a shout out. And it's funny because I also have that background, Marion, where I came from the broadcasting sector, and who else? It's Cecily, right?
Cecily, yeah.
So it must be a common bond, right? You learn so much when I do these shows. Sue, how about you? Tell me about your phenomenal background, how you got started.
Well, way back in 1992, my youngest daughter was now going into school full time. So I had been a stay-at-home mom at that point. I had little part-time jobs here and there. But primarily was a stay-at-home mom. So our third daughter was now going into first grade. So she was in school full time. So I thought, well, I need to find something to do. Of course, I was the whole, PTA mom and involved in all those things, but I also needed something else as well. So I started looking around for, different jobs, and I come across an advertisement for a company at the time whose name was Coldwell Banker Relocation Services. and they were located in the suburban Chicago area, which is where I lived. I knew nothing about relocation. I didn't even know there was an industry of relocation, but I applied for the job. It was for a receptionist. I applied for the job. I said, hey, I could do that. So got the job. And over the course of time, I became very intrigued by this relocation industry, very much interested in it. So I started applying for different jobs within the company. An appraisal specialist came up. I applied for it. Somebody doing titles and the inspections, reviewing and ordering. I did all of that. And then the big job became available, a relocation consultant. So I applied for one of the relocation consultant roles, and I was fortunate enough to get that job. I had no idea. By the way, total respect for what goes into that job. So I took on that position for a couple of years, and then over the course of time, things were changing in the industry. 9/11 came about. Companies were downsizing, doing all sorts of things. I was fortunate enough over time to be able to be offered positions in other areas, ultimately working through training as well as account management. So then I was responsible for a portfolio of corporate clients. So I did all of that. And then, over time, the other positions became available, moved over into what was GMAC relocation and GMAC real estate and managing broker networks. And all of that led me to where I am today. So here I am. It all started because my kids all went off to school. So there you go.
Well, and the tie-in of the fact that it's so special because, all of these different roles are so unique and they are so important and vital for what we do in the roles that you do, because you understand each piece of the puzzle and how it comes into play and how important it is to have those right people in place to be able to be successful. So,
yeah.
Sue, again, great to know that. Now, all of us are in affinity and work in that marketplace. And it's hotter than ever, right? The programs and all these benefits and all these different, and every time you turn around, somebody's creating a program. So let's talk about that, because what is the biggest difference that you are seeing in today's business, right, world, and some of the challenges or opportunities facing us in the industry, especially with the relocation industry kind of changing, in the fact that people can be, they don't have to be, they can be remote and work from anywhere. So I'm going to start with you, Carrie, and then Marion, and then Sue.
Great. So yeah, we've seen some different changes, and I've got a unique perspective because we work, our programs really tie the mortgage side in with the real estate side. So in the last, 15 years, the biggest change we've seen is RESPA. And so how real estate and mortgage companies can work together and how we did it. I mean, I go back to the first MSAs that we created 10 years ago that were a very different type of a program. And obviously we've all had to figure out how to readjust. And so that's where I see a lot of the shifts and a lot of, how we can bring affinity programs to actually still connect those parties together with the new changing regulations. And every 4 or 8 years, the interpretation of those directions will change. And so figuring out how to be adaptable for that. And I see a lot of great opportunities. As you said, Teresa, there are a lot more programs that are coming up. And so, that's one of the challenges is there is some saturation. But the unique opportunity is any affinity program shouldn't just be about referring business. It's about what is the operator of that program, of that affinity channel, like for all of our customers that want to operate these programs that we operate for them. What is it they're trying to do to make it a better experience for that customer who's trying to buy or sell a home? At the end of the day, that's all that we're worried about is that home buyer or seller. And so when you look at the increase of some of these affinity programs, it's like, well, it's just handing off a referral. There's really no better business. And so when you look at these new up and coming programs, it's what can make it unique. So we focus very, very much on not just referring business, but we're actually building a team. And so looking at that of going beyond a referral. And so it's, do we have all the right people connected? Are we making it a better experience and helping that customer get to close to increase the odds for all of our work, all of our agents' work, to get that customer into their home that they really want to get into. And so I think that's actually one of the good opportunities for anyone who's running an affinity program is what sets you apart to make it so that it's a good experience for the agent, but ultimately for that customer, and what helps them get into their or sell their home easily and successfully. It's a complex process and you have to bring it together. So that's what I've seen.
And taking care of the customer and being very specialized in what you offer. I think that's so unique, Carrie. And so, again, a great perspective. Marion, how about you? And again, I'm going to come to Sue and I'm going to twist it a little bit.
Uh-oh.
You can do it. You can do it though.
Oh, good. I'm glad I don't get the twist. I think the opportunity and the challenge is getting down to the consumer, getting the message to the consumer. So, oftentimes we're working through, the company and relying on them to communicate the message to the employee in with whatever ways they have, whether it's on an intranet or email or other types of communications. And so, and the only time we ever hear, that there's a problem is when an employee finds out, I could have gotten cash back and I didn't know, I've already bought a house. And so that's what we try to avoid. And so we're always trying to offer all of our assistance to the corporation to say, how can we help you? What kind of marketing materials can we give you? Can we do a webinar direct to your employees and tell them about it so that then they can tell each other and really get that awareness throughout the employee population, so they're not missing out, because that's the main thing. So,
and I couldn't agree with you more, Marion. That's a big challenge, no matter what industry you're in, just making sure that people understand the programs that are available to them and the benefits that they have. With the industry, my dad came from the airline industry, and let me tell you, we were always looking for benefits and discounts because airline personnel travel quite a bit to different locations. So they were always looking at the board at the back time to find out what hotels and destinations can I go to where I can get almost free or at least discounted rates. So it's a great benefit, and just getting that message out to all of you that are out there that are customers so that they can also let their employees know about these great benefits that we have. And Sue, for you, just because I know the industry and I know our agents that are part of our network is, they get sometimes a little upset about the return times that Carrie's company requires. Got to respond quickly, fast, immediately, right?
Yeah.
2, you also look at the fact that you're paying a referral fee, and that also is part of and we talk about all that and very open. And also because there are so many programs out there, those problems that we also have of making sure you register. So again, Sue, that's the twist. It's just, I think that's challenge and opportunity as well. So how do we kind of...
Yeah, that is the challenge and the opportunity. So, I think to go along with both Carrie and Marion's comments, I think the landscape of referral channels in general are changing. And as you said, affinity programs, affinity business is hotter than ever because things are changing so rapidly. And I think a big change that has happened, of course, over the years has been this agent direct business model. So historically, and I know that those that are listening in on this that are all in referral leader or business development roles, historically, the process has always been that any leads, any referrals will come through a business development or a referral channel or relocation department. And there is a primary point of contact in that department. And their role is so valuable in making certain that the right agents are being utilized. And so I think one of the changes, a big change, has been to just continue to keep them looped in on all that's going on, so that they are aware of what's happening. And also it makes certain that there's not duplicate referral fees being paid if these leads are coming from various sources. So that role of a referral leader, relocation director, business development director is as important as it ever has been. But there's also this process of getting that speed to lead. How quickly can you get to the consumer and make certain that their needs are being met as well? Because all of us in some form or fashion are consumers. We all want to be contacted immediately when we are looking for something. So how do we continue making certain that this very critical role of a referral leader is still involved in all of the various lead channels? And Carrie, you probably recall, as we were going down different programs with you, it absolutely was a concern, but we were able to work through it, and we were able to make certain that those who are responsible for the lead channels are still involved in it. Because their roles, as I said, are very critical. And at the same time, we have this balancing act where we also must make certain that the consumers are being contacted immediately. So that becomes the challenge, and also the opportunity internally. How do we work this out so that all parties' best interests are met, and we can maintain really the value of all programs? So it's a challenge, it's an opportunity, and it's also the big change. It's that whole, as I said, going right to the agent direct.
It is shifting. And again, our biggest advice for those agents that are watching is make sure that if you ever get a referral, if you're talking to someone, that you ask the questions, hey, by the way, are you part of a company affinity program? We just want to make sure that we know that in advance, and then provide that information to your relocation department so that you are safe and registered. All right. I want to know more about you guys personally, because this is what this show's about. It's about leadership, about your personal achievements, your personal, problems that you've had or faced, or, so let's start with Marion. Let's talk about what has been the most memorable. I love hearing about memorable events that have impacted you in professionally or personally, that you can tell us. And then I'll hit Sue and then Carrie.
So when I was going over the questions, to think of the answers, one just popped right into my head, because this, I think, really probably impacted the rest of my entire career. And it was very memorable. So I was in college, I was a senior in college, and I was about to graduate and was looking to what I wanted to do with my life. And I was majoring in communications with a focus on broadcasting, radio and TV. So I was thinking I was going to be a journalist. I was going to be a TV reporter and an anchor, and I was going to go do the TV thing. And my mom had grew up next door to a neighbor who wound up being an anchor on one of I think the NBC station, I don't know, one of the stations in the Triad in North Carolina. So he allowed me to come to the station, and he let me go around to all the different departments and see what everybody did. And then after he did his 11 o'clock news, he sat down and answered questions. And so I was talking to him, and I said, I want to do what you do. And he said, no, you don't. He said, no, you don't. You want to be in sales. And I said, I do. And he said, yeah, you want, that you should, if you want to be in radio and TV, that's great, but you need to apply for the business development roles. And he said, as a reporter, you're going to be the one, out in the hurricane reporting instead of safe in your house. You're going to be the one on the holidays, doing the stuff. But he said, I think you would really be good in the business development role. So I immediately sent letters to every radio station and TV station in Greensboro, Winston-Salem, and Charlotte, wound up in radio in Charlotte. And then, as I said a minute ago, that led me to my real estate career, because of one of my managers at radio wound up transitioning to real estate. So I think just that one meeting sort of changed everything.
Wow, what great advice, right, that you were given, because it's so true. And those positions are so volatile too. Whereas you can get into sales if you're, in any industry, it transfers anywhere. So Carrie, how about you?
So, and every time I think about like a pivotal moment in my career and where I learned the most, it actually goes back to a little storm that we had called Katrina that hit the New Orleans area. And I'll get to where that point of that is when that hit. Company I was with at the time, I learned so much through this one experience about leadership and about people. The CEO came in, she said, 6 weeks, we're going to raise $5 million. We're going to cover every one of the office's bills. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. All looked at it. We were like, she's nuts. There is no way, what in the world, like, and these people are devastated. Like, what are we going to do? And pulled together, and to be honest, we raised 10 million in 4 weeks.
Wow.
Put together programs that actually connected people across the country to each other as they were angels, is what we called them. And so, you know, you need this, you need a car, you need help with closings. Like, how do we get the closings to go through? How do we do all of this? But the reason why it was so, I mean, obviously it was impactful. We made a huge impact on those people's lives, but that was that pivotal moment of when I really got to learn, it's like, okay, how do you get people through a crisis? How do you figure out how to get the right approach? And by the way, all those systems are actually still up and running for crisis management today. So it's like we got out of our own way to figure out how to collectively come together as a group and say, how do we solve these problems today? And then build a support system that will go on forever. So whether it is something as devastating as something like Katrina, or it's even on a day-to-day of a small thing of trying to get your team to break through, switch from going to an interceptor to being agent direct, it's come together, look at all the different sides. And then, but I learned so much as just a leader of how to get people focused on together on the same track, on a shared mission, on a goal that really took me, it kind of changed my career path 100%, where it's like, wow, I learned so much that really propelled me into the leadership path.
What a beautiful story, and what a big accomplishment. You know, I think that's amazing, Carrie. Sue, how about you?
Yeah. So, you know, as I was preparing for today and thinking through that particular question, I was really having a hard time thinking of a singular memorable event that led me to where I am now. But one of the things that I was thinking about was something that one of our former senior leadership members with a previous relocation management company with whom I worked, something that they would do on a regular basis with all of us who were in any type of a people manager role. And it actually kind of goes along with my thoughts on one of the other questions that we may be getting to today. And it really had to do with having an open forum for anybody who was in a management role to get together. And we would do this over a 2-day period once a month. So it was a member of our senior leadership team that would pull together department heads. And what he would do would be to assign a particular article from the Harvard Business Review. So we knew ahead of time that this was the particular topic we were going to cover. And over 2 days, we would all get together and discuss this particular article and strategize how we could take learning points from those 2 days and apply them to our teams, to the company. And these were things, by the way, like different types of leadership styles, emotional intelligence. How does emotional intelligence impact teams? What are some of the things that we can do to be the best manager of ourselves? How do we self-manage? What are some of the things that we take from that? So there was always this topic. And so those times during my department management positions within different companies really stand out to me, because it was all of those things and really everything that we've experienced in life that just shapes us as we continue going forward. But those particular learning sessions that he would hold for us, I really think really did lead me to where I am today, and to really have that ability to relate to other people, to work operationally, to work strategically, because you look at things in so many different ways. And so it was great to review those articles. I would recommend it, by the way. I loved doing that review of Harvard Business Review.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
Good idea.
What a great way to
It was
strategize
fantastic.
and to think outside the box and to create opportunities within your companies. I think that's a great idea. I may have to steal that one. So
I think so too. And it also
love
became my answer, by the way, to, you know, one of your other questions about the courses and things that we did,
that you
because
would
I
take.
think it's fantastic.
And I want to shout out Kathy Jackson's watching us right now. And Kathy, I know you'll love that idea, because she's always coming wanting new ideas, right, for
There
us
you
to
go.
do. So I love it. So let's talk about risk. What is the biggest risk that you have ever taken? And I want whoever wants to jump in and answer that question, just raise your hand.
I could jump in right away because something jumped out immediately. I had mentioned as I was talking about my career path that So at one point, the company I was working for, Coldwell Banker Relocation Services, of course, over time, they had merged into many different companies. And we got to a point after the events of September 11th where companies were merging, downsizing all over. At this particular time, the company had made a decision to move some of their operations to their corporate headquarters in Danbury, Connecticut. So we were undergoing a number of layoffs and different things happening. At the time, I was offered an opportunity to relocate to Danbury, Connecticut to be one of their trainers. But after consulting with my husband, I decided to turn the opportunity down because my husband at that point was well entrenched in his law enforcement career. Our kids were now either into middle school or early years of high school. They were very involved in educational and extracurricular activities. And it just simply would have been too disruptive to move everybody now somewhere else for my job. So I decided to turn the opportunity down, not knowing what was going to happen. I was already 12 or 15 years into employment with this company. So should I take the move? Should I not take the move? I ended up not taking it. And so that was the risk that I took. Turned out okay, though, because in the end, another opportunity within that company opened up. I was able to stay with the company. I was able to stay in the Chicagoland area. And again, just put me on the path to where I am today. So it was a risk, turned out okay.
I love it. And sometimes that's I always believe that there's a plan for you, right?
Yeah.
God always has a plan. And so that's great. How about anyone else?
All right, I'll jump in. I'll kind of share my story. And I was so nervous at the time when I made the decision, but the last company I was with, I'd been there for 10 years and had been thinking about leaving. And I interviewed, got a job offer, great job here, back mostly in the tech sector. It was a CIO position, and initially actually accepted it and I was just making the transition where I was to go from really a tech lead to the business lead and switching over to that business side. And I think I was getting nervous. And I think that's why I went out and looked for, it was a CIO, traditional CIO leader job in a not real estate industry. And then I got the job offer, was actually up in Washington, DC for some NAR legislative meetings. Some of my first meetings, I got into industry relations and got to meet those. And I was sitting there, I was at the table and I was sitting there looking around the room. I'm like, I'm a few weeks into learning this whole side of the world that I haven't even gotten a part of at all, because I think I'm about to run to safety instead of taking the chance to learn this entirely new world of politics, NAR. I ended up becoming an NAR director. I was on the MLS advisory board. I've made great connections to the Berkshire Hathaway Home Services executive teams and the NAR leadership teams. And so I remember I was sitting in that meeting and I walked out lunch and I called the other firm and I said, I am so sorry, but I can't take this job right now. I'm sitting in this lunch realizing the opportunity I have in front of me that I have not taken a shot at yet. And I need to take a shot at this. And I'm so sorry. And they said, great. I've actually stayed friends with the person who's hiring. They found a great candidate that was perfect for them. And my career took off. That sent me into a whole nother realm than what I ever in my life expected to do. Because it was right after, I think, my first NAR meeting that I walked into, I was like, wow, I was like a deer out of headlights, a deer in the headlights. And so, it was that chance that I took, and it was the scariest and the best decision I have ever made in my life.
Wow. And they always say until you're scared, it's only when you're scared that that you're making the right move, like being scared and going, wow, this is amazing. This is something else that I haven't done. Carrie, I think you made the right choice, and we're so glad to have you as part of our group. So thank you again for that information. And again, Marion, if you want to, that's great. Do you have something you want to share with us, or I can move on to the next question?
Sure. I think it's just sort of the opposite of Sue and Carrie, because they made a decision to not take an opportunity, and it turned out to be the right thing for them. I think throughout my career, it always felt like a risk when I would move into a different position. So when I was assistant manager and got offered the role of broker in charge, I thought, oh no, how am I going to handle my own office? And then moving into the reload department, and then coming to home services, relocation, and business development. And I think every time it felt like a risk, but like you said, it scared me enough to go like, I'm all in. Why not? Let's do it. Yeah, we'll figure it out. So yeah, my MO has always just been, when the opportunity presents itself, evaluate it, but I always just move forward. So.
Which is great too. So either way, right? It's what's right for you and what's best for you at the time of your life, right? I think a lot of that's what I want to just kind of leave that message with everybody, because sometimes it's not the right time and you kind of know it, right? And then there are times when you realize, I got to move forward. I got to do this, even as scared as I am, what's going to happen? Hey, I can always go back to real estate and sales. So, right. So what is, here's another one. As far as mistakes, what's the biggest, because people need to know we make mistakes too, right? So what's the biggest mistake you've ever made or seen or witnessed somebody else make that you wish, hey, you want to tell, or just say, hey, this was a mistake, but I learned from that mistake. Sue, let me start with you.
So, I thought about this a lot. Then I thought, I hate to even put a label on anything to say that it's a mistake, because, and I've said this, I think a time or two, even, during this panel today, where I thought I don't know that I've made any mistakes or witnessed anything that I would do differently, only because I truly believe, Teresa, that everything that we're doing, whether it turned out good or bad at the time, was meant to play out that way, and it just leads us into wherever we're going. So I always feel in my life, well, okay, I did this and maybe I should have gone in a different direction, except this is what led me here. And maybe at the time you're not even realizing that this is just the way it was supposed to be. So I can't even really say that there's a mistake that I've made or witnessed, because I truly do believe that everything is just playing out as it's supposed to play out. So I can't really pinpoint anything in that regard.
Anyone else?
I'll say, and I don't know if it's necessarily a mistake, it is more of an overarching kind of thing in business. And we've heard the term that, people don't leave companies, they leave managers. And so, I always considered it a personal failure when one of my real estate agents, when I was a broker in charge, and this as well, Teresa, and, being in the brokerage business too. And, sometimes they leave. And that was always a personal failure to me. It was, what did I not provide to them? What did I not give them that would have changed their mind? And so, and whether it was an independent contractor, because independent contractors, 10 minutes and $10 and they can be at another brokerage. But whether it's an independent contractor or an employee, if I lost a team member, I felt like it was a personal failure. And so and when I was reading these questions and I thought of that, I thought, okay, so how do I do better now? And so I'm, how can I be intentional about every day thinking about my team members, and do they have the resources they need? Do they have the tools? Do they have my encouragement? Do they have my time? What do they need from me? And because I don't want to have another personal failure like that, losing a team member.
Oh, wow, that's great insight. And you're so right. People do I take things personally, and I think a mistake a lot of people do make is just being short-sighted. They look at the financial and then don't realize that the opportunity of the culture of the people, that all plays into more than anything, not just the money about it. So I think you're absolutely right. We are almost out of time, and you're not going to believe it, right? Gosh, time is switched because we're having so much fun. But I do want to talk about people that inspire you, mentors. I know Tanya Hamilton's watching. We all have to do a shout out to Tanya, because we did kind of give her a recognition when she wasn't when we were off screen about how she has inspired a lot of us and is a big part of somebody who I respect quite a bit. So anyone else in your group that you guys want to talk about that inspired you, mentored you? You kind of mentioned a couple people, but Carrie, how about you? And then Marion, how about you?
Yep, I've had it's amazing. I've had so many different people who inspire and different point. They always come. I think it was so you said things happen for a reason at a time. So there's so many people have come into my life that it's like they were at the right time to help me through whatever that was. Like the mentor that I had at the time of when I was growing that career during Katrina. I mean, she was the best mentor I could have ever had, and we went through crisis with the team and could really help with that. I've also had great mentors that have helped me to take me through parts of my career. So there's not one. And I get so much from so many different people that every person I meet, I'm like, wow, what unique perspective do they have? They could help me expand my horizons and figure out how to see a different perspective. I've had a couple folks, I will go back to, my husband and I were actually just talking about this the other day, is my very first manager when I got that job, because I had no experience and he had no budget. So I got the job back in IT. I actually look at that first person who inspired and mentored me to take chances. Because he actually taught me skills. He was like, you're the company I was at. He was like, this is not long-term for you. But what I wanted to do is I want to teach you the skills because I actually want you to go find a job someplace else because you can crush it. And I've never had a leader ever say that before. I mean, who would ever say that before? But he recognized something in me. I always try and remember that. So I always try and that stuck with me. So like when I'm working with other folks where I'm like, what is that unique thing that they have that I want to make sure that we're really helping them recognize and really helping push that forward. So, that was lots of mentors, lots of people that I really look up to on a regular basis. But that was the very first one that kind of got me propelled where I was like, that's the decision I never would have heard a leader ever take. And it was kind of one of the best lessons that I learned from him.
What a beautiful thing for somebody to do, to recognize it and say, hey, it might be somewhere else, that I think you can really crush it in. I think that's
every new job, I actually still email mom like, hey, by the way, I just am doing this now. Thanks for kickstarting my career. Like every single time. It's like, okay, you can stop now, Carrie. It's fine.
I love it. I love it. Sue, how about you?
So, two people jump out. First and foremost, I have to say, my husband has actually inspired me and on the surface, people who know us and look at us would say, holy moly, these two are polar opposites. How did they ever get together and how do they stay together? But in the things that really matter, we think very similar. And he has always been great at allowing me to just run something by him and say, this is where I'm going with this. These are my reasons behind it. But then because he thinks so differently from me, he has another way of looking at things. The other person I would be remiss in not mentioning, of course, is my current manager, Mary Kelly. And this is why. For those of you who know Mary, she's so awesome in so many ways. For me, I'm very fortunate that she even saw the skill set and the traits in me to bring me over into this department when it started 8 years ago and to bring me with her. And she is also a wonderful person to bounce things off of. And one of the things that she will say to me always when we're talking through things is she will always say, we must always allow people the dignity of their own process. And so it reminds me that, hey, somebody may be going about something differently than the way I am. We must allow them to get through it the way that they need to get through it. So those are people that have inspired me and whom I look up to.
And Mary Kelly, we love you, and we are also thinking about you. Great. Yeah. I totally agree with that. That's beautiful. 100%. It's almost going to make me cry because I think just such a special and such a great advice. And so true, right? Let people process it the way they need to. Yep. Marion, how about you?
I agree with Sue and Carrie that it's hard to name just one. There's so many people that have been mentors to me over my career, starting with my current boss, Stephen John, just his knowledge. Shout outs to Stephen.
That's right.
he has so much knowledge of this business, but then he on top of that, he's got an accounting background, and so he's great with numbers. He's great with everything, and I learn something new from him every day. And so that prior to that, the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Carolina's Realty, is Tommy Camp.
Yes, Tommy.
Hey, shout outs to Tommy. And for the longest time, same thing. I just learned from him all the time, and it's so many great lessons. And he was the one that was, giving me the opportunities to move from assistant manager to broker in charge, and giving me my own office, and then putting me in the relocation department. And so, that I think it was about 12 years I was there. And so yeah, he had a real big impact. And then I had to go back to my teenage years. I had a job when I was a teenager at a dance studio, and me and the other girls that worked there, we did everything from vacuuming the floors to handling the accounting books to teaching the little kids, tap dancing, and I mean everything. And I went there every day after school, and the owner of the company was an employer. She was a friend. She was a coach. She was a mentor. But I really feel like I learned so many good lessons very early on about work ethic and what was expected as an employee, but from a very kind and loving person. Because we also took dance lessons from her. So anyway, so that she had a big impact on me too.
Oh, and that's where it starts, right? At that young age, where you get those career, models that help you really throughout the rest of your life. So, shout out to those individuals, and for sure, Stephen, who I adore too. So 2 last questions, 30 seconds each. What advice would you give to your younger self or to a family member about the business, like about anything in life? Sue?
I would say there's a few things that stand out to me all the time. I think one of the things I've learned as I've become older and wiser is don't worry so much about what other people think of you. Don't ever burn bridges. You may have to cross them again. And the other thing that I've spent so much time teaching my children as they've grown up is you do not need to attend every argument you've been invited to. So
That's a good.
That's a great one. That's a great one. Oh, Marion, how about you?
Show up. Just showing up sometimes is half the battle. Show up, work hard, and do what you say you're going to do.
Right, showing up is 90% of success. They always say, right? I love it. That's a great. And Carrie?
I would say my advice: take chances. Ask for help. You don't have to do everything. So that's probably when we talked about our Achilles heels. It's like, that's mine. I don't have to do everything. I can take those chances, and then surround yourself with people to help you achieve those things. But most importantly, it's okay that my first job, when I moved up and I called and said, I don't know how to do it. I shouldn't apply for this. Like, I don't know how to do any of it. It's like, well, that's called learning.
So
go learn.
Beautiful.
Go
learn, right? Learn something new. That's the best thing, because that gets you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. Never stop learning. Never stop.
Oh, all right. Well, this is our last question I ask everyone. So again, what is your favorite quote, your favorite book, a course that you may have taken, or even some podcast or movie that resonated with you, and just, and share it with our audience. So I'm going to start with you, Sue.
Okay. I have to say, this is something that has stuck with me from my life, starting back to 8th grade, because this was our 8th grade commencement speech. And this is how much it's resonated with me. It was a prose poem called Desiderata, and we read it during our commencement. I just want to read a couple of lines from it, because it is so impactful, and I just love it. I keep it posted at my desk here. But it starts out with, go placidly amid the noise and the haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. And then it ends with this, and I've mentioned this a couple of times now. It ends with this: whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should be. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be. There's a whole lot of other stuff that's woven into this whole thing. It ends with, Whatever your labors and aspirations in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful and strive to be happy. What more do we
What
need?
a beautiful poem, and for you to remember it and that impact, it's kind of like Roger Kipling, which I know that you hear, Gino talk about all the time. These are
Yes.
the things that kind of resonate, that really make us. I love that.
For
And
me, it's
I've
Denzel
never heard
Jagata.
it.
Oh,
I've never heard it. So send it
look
to
it
me.
up,
I can
read
post
it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
All
Yeah.
right. How about you, Marion?
So I'm a fan of Maya Angelou, and she said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
It is my favorite quote of all times, and I actually keep it by my desk too.
Oh, do you really?
So true. It just, I think it really resonates with you. You don't remember any of the other stuff, but if somebody made you feel bad, you remember that.
Yeah.
If they made you feel good, you remember that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are so true. I love it. Carrie?
Yep, and I'll end on a succinct one. I actually always kind of go back to when this quote, someone asked me, one time if you had a theme song, what would it be? And this is what I have posted on my wall in front of me. And this goes back to taking chances. So to everyone, I always say, go big or go home. So if you're going to do it, do it.
Go home. I love it. What a great way to end it. I think that's fabulous. Thank you all for sharing. Wasn't this fun? It was
This is great.
So fast it goes by. And Carrie's mom, we got to say hi to her because I think she's watching us. I always want to give a shout out to moms and dads out there. So thank you so much for sharing your insights, your leadership tips, and also inspiring all of us, including me. I mean, I get so inspired with these. When I talk to you, you inspire me, you really motivate me. It keeps me wanting to do this. And, it was so very special to have you guys on the show. And I love this quote by David Niven, who stated, wisdom is knowing what to do next. Skill is knowing how to do it. And virtue is doing it. And all of you, I think, speaks, this is perfect for what I heard today. It's all of these things you are part of, right? So thank you for sharing your experiences. And for our audiences, thank you for watching and for following our series. And so please join us 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks from today on August 18th, when we're going to be interviewing Diane Ramirez. She is an icon in the real estate industry, and she actually has just joined Berkshire Hathaway Home Services New York properties as the Chief Strategy Officer. And I can't wait to interview her. It's a big role. New York is our big market. It's a luxury. It's an international, global, and her role is going to be very big. So I can't wait to see her, and to all of you join us again on the 18th. And remember the one thing, don't forget to join our Facebook page, also our YouTube channel, and keep this always in mind, to bring another woman up the ladder with you as you climb to the top. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great week. And again, thank you guys for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa.
Bye-bye.